What's going on, Flock? It is Tuesday, January 7th, 12:06 Eastern here in the early afternoon hours. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens lunch hour live stream. My co-host, Sarah Ellison, will be with us briefly. She's on her way back from a dentist appointment that just so happened to pop up in the 11 o'clock hour. So that's our power hour. You know how it goes. We got her back. She'll be with us in just a bit. But as always, I'm Bobby Trossett. You know how it is in here. This is where it's brought to you by our friends at Manta Sleep, and it is officially wild card week. That's what we're working our way towards. It's the Ravens and Steelers coming up at 8 o'clock inside M&T Bank Stadium under the primetime lights for a chance to, of course, win and you move on. And in this case, it would likely be a trip to the divisional round. Well, it's definitely going to be in the divisional round, but perhaps a trip to Buffalo. And of course, the front runners for MVP would square off. But first and foremost, the Ravens got to get past their bitter rival. And they've obviously had some struggles against Pittsburgh in recent seasons. Lots to get to over the course of the next hour, including what Kyle Van Noy said on his most recent podcast with Gerald McCoy, his co-host. And of course, he hosts on Yahoo Sports. Did he just maybe tease what Zay Flowers' availability is coming up on Saturday? We know that Zay ruled out over the weekend with a knee injury. NFL insiders like Ian Rappaport noting that it is a knee sprain. Time will tell. But based on what Kyle just had to say, perhaps some actually encouraging news, an encouraging feeling going into Wild Card weekend. Aside from that, Todd Monken's interview requests are piling up. He's up to 2. And quarterbacks coach T. Martin, who, of course, has been working with Lamar Jackson now for a couple years, he has a request as well. Aside from that, another MVP voter making it known that he's riding with Lamar for this year's award. We'll have clips from that coming up a little bit later on, along with some quick hits as well. Partner will be with me in just a second. She's getting herself situated. And while she does, listen to what Kyle Van Noy had to say on his podcast, McCoy and Van Noy, earlier this week.
Little banged up, but knowing Zay, he's played when he hasn't practiced. He's a tough little sucker, bro. He's from Broward County too. You know how those Broward County kids they for real over there down in Florida. They love football, and he's gonna do everything he can to play. I'm going into expecting to see him on Sunday, just knowing who he is as a person and him as his competitive nature. We'll see, but that's I'm going in knowing that I got him in the game. That's for sure.
KVN coming off, of course, a 12.5 sack campaign in year 2 with Baltimore at age 33. He is in many ways the heart and soul of this team with some veteran savvy. And while it's not gospel, what he just said, I think that's encouraging. Quote, I'm going into it expecting to see him on Sunday, which is really Saturday, as we know, just knowing who he is as a person. I'm going in knowing I got him in the game. That's for sure. And he referenced, of course, past times where Zay's been banged up, didn't practice. Wouldn't expect to see Zay very much at all this week with practice, which, of course, begins today for preparation for a Saturday game. And Lamar Jackson will be one of many to meet with the media coming up at 3:30. So mark your calendars accordingly. If you missed this yesterday, John Harbaugh had this to say about Zay's injury specifically.
It's not a season-ending injury, so it's just going to be day-to-day, try to do everything he can do to get back as soon as he can, and we'll see where that takes us.
Can you just confirm whether that was a sprained knee?
No, I don't really have any confirmation on anything like that. It's not really what we're required to do. It's his knee.
Yep.
I can tell you that. So.
All right. So, in other words, here's where we stand. NFL insider Ian Rappaport, as we shared with you earlier in the week, and I bring in my co-host Sarah Ellison, fresh off her dental appointment. Everything go all right?
Everything's good.
Okay. Good to know.
Thank you for covering for me there for a minute.
Absolutely. And as you heard off the top here, KVN, perhaps just infusing some confidence into this situation, right? It's not gospel, but we know what Zay's made of. KVN was sure to acknowledge what Zay's made of, and perhaps that's the toughness and fortitude that he might give this a go, despite some national reports certainly coming across as if this would be challenging given the turnaround.
Yeah, this is a little bit Well, I'd say surprising, but kind of not. Just what we've heard from Adam Schefter and from Ian Rappaport. I listened to Adam Schefter on NFL Live. They said they're going to test him on Saturday. But he said that it would be a bit challenging. Adam Schefter went on to say the good part is if the Ravens are able to advance into the divisional round, he said, quote, I think he will definitely be back by the next week. So from Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, we were getting the feeling that, yes, he's going to test it, but probably won't go. Kyle Van Noy saying something similar, saying, yeah, he's going to test it, but I expect him to go. So really it's going to come down to Saturday afternoon and how things are feeling.
And there you have it. So that's the latest what we know. Again, courtesy of Kyle Van Noy's show. And let's keep this show going because there's plenty going on regarding the Ravens coaching staff. And the interview requests, partner, are starting to pile up for offensive coordinator Todd Monken, who just finished his second regular season in Baltimore, as we all know. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, friend of the show. We had him on at Radio Row in Vegas last year at the Super Bowl, tweeted out last night that the Bears put in a request to interview Todd for their head coaching job. Of course, they parted ways with Matt Eberflus in season. And then right before, and this was probably smack dab during your appointment, maybe you haven't even seen it yet, the second request came in, and that is from Jacksonville. They just, of course, parted ways with Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning head coach during his time in Philadelphia. So 24 hours in, Sarah, where these requests can be made. They can't speak, by the way. They can't speak to these candidates until next week, and it has to be done remotely. So just to be clear on that, but 24 hours in, and a coveted candidate already has two, Sarah, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's at the beginning of just how coveted he might end up becoming over the next couple weeks.
If I'm a GM or I'm an owner, for sure, Todd Monken is on my list. If you want an offensive-minded head coach, you obviously got one in Todd Monken. If you want a guy that players can connect with and really like, Todd Monken's that guy. I cannot remember. I will never forget how happy Lamar Jackson was in those first mini camp and training camp sessions with Todd Monken there, and how he was laughing and smiling about how loud he is and how funny he is. So you've got a offensive-minded coach who's clearly doing a good job, and it's not just with the Ravens. He won back-to-back national championships with Georgia. He's so good at adapting offenses to the personnel, and we have seen that in his 2 years with the Ravens. Then he's really good with the media. He's low-key my favorite guy to listen to at the media. He gives answers without throwing anybody under the bus, always puts himself first in terms of, like, if something is going wrong, he says, well, I got to coach better. He'll always do that. He'll blame himself first. And then when it's good things going, he's always like, well, the players make this, and you're just nice to me because things are going well right now. Like, he's been around forever. He knows what he's doing. He'd be great with the media. He'd be a great leader. I mean, he has it all. The only thing that's a knock against him is if you're a GM or owner that wants the next guy that could be there for 20 years, 30 years, the next big guy, long-term guy. So being an older coach in some ways works for him. But if you're somebody that wants a younger coach, that works against him. But it's no surprise to me that he's on two lists and that could keep growing, but it's not great news for Lamar Jackson, the Ravens. I can tell you that.
And speaking of the list, just to reiterate, there are other candidates like a even current head coach who Chicago is reportedly at least interested in speaking with, and that is the Dallas Cowboys head coach, Mike McCarthy. You see the other names that are on this list as well for Jacksonville, names like Kellen Moore, Ben Johnson, right? Aaron Glenn, guys that are sort of the sexy picks that you've heard a lot of noise about the last couple off seasons. So for Todd Monken, 2 thus far, Chicago and Jacksonville, maybe more to come. And just in case you're wondering, you've been living under a rock, why is Todd the guy? Well, I mean, how many slides do we have on this? Plenty. I mean, look at this. Look at what the Ravens offense did this year. We're not even counting last year in year one. Dan Orlovsky compiled a few of the most notable accomplishments. The most rushing yards per rush, I should say the most yards per rush in a season, is owned by the 2024 Ravens. 5.76 to be exact. That trumps the 1963 Browns, who had 5.74 yards per rush. What about the most yards per play in a season? The Ravens find themselves among good company. The 2024 Ravens are third on that list at 6.85, joining the 1954 Rams and the 2000 Rams for best ever. The highest passer rating in the season, we know this. Lamar finds himself amongst the top 4, a couple of ahead of him, Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning, 2 surefire first ballot Hall of Famers. And of course, the King's season at 31, which he turned over the weekend to go for over 1,900 rushing yards. That's the most in a season by a player that did not win the rushing title. But guess what? There isn't a Saquon Barkley that's been lurking all that often in a single season when you've got a Derrick Henry that's doing similar, Sarah. And look at what Lamar's numbers are. I mean, you can go on and on and on. We haven't talked about Zay's accolades. We haven't talked about the amount of touchdowns that Mark Andrews, the most he's ever brought in a single season. So a lot of this you have to point at Todd Monken in the best of ways. And of course, you know, this is obviously something that you would have expected for a second consecutive offseason.
What's craziest about that previous slide, I'm like 2019 Ravens aren't on here. You know, like 2024, I'm really curious where 2019 ranks in the most yards per rush. But it's all of it. And this is what he does. He marries things together so well. I mean, we've been running well in Baltimore since Lamar Jackson took over in his era. But I mean, it's not just that they had this phenomenal rushing attack, but the highest passer rating, the highest yards per play. And of course, Todd Monken has this potentially 3-time MVP at his disposal, but he does this where he goes. He's able to adapt. And I think the biggest thing is him empowering Lamar and Lamar being able to take control, which I think leads into a lot of people say it's all Derrick Henry, and obviously Derrick Henry helps, but what about Todd Monken just empowering him, right? And letting him to make the calls at the line of scrimmage. And how about the fact that every single year in the postseason, the way they beat Lamar is with the blitz. And now all of a sudden under Todd Monken, that you can't beat him in the blitz, you can't beat him in just a 4-man rush. Like it's phenomenal what he's been able to do. He has lots of fun weapons to play with, but he's hitting all the right buttons.
No, yeah, he's brought Lamar and this offense to new heights, which is pretty significant when you think about what those heights were prior to his arrival. And now, obviously, the big outstanding question, can he, along with the other staff members and this entire team, get to where they haven't gone yet? One more statistic for you as well, just speaking to Todd's offense and its dominance. It averaged over 6.8 yards per play this season. That's the second best mark in NFL history. So, of course, he's going to be highly sought after, right? I see a lot of surprise types of comments in the live chat. What do you mean? This isn't a surprise. And yes, as some have also said, and kind of pump the brakes a little bit, it is just a request. It is just a conversation. But we all know where requests and conversations can sometimes lead, especially in this NFL head coaching cycle. And for Todd Monken, perhaps the first of many requests coming up in the coming days. Now, Sarah, as we've talked about in recent months, I can't remember the last time. I know I did on my personal channel within the last couple of days. You always kind of think about, well, who'd be next, right? When Mike Macdonald clearly emerged as that guy this time last year, it didn't come as a surprise. But our conversation that followed is, well, who's next? Who's going to be his successor? And of course, they tabbed 32-year-old defensive coordinator, first time in Zach Orr, to be promoted from within. I think the easy answer when you think about potentially life after Todd Monken, and for Ravens fans' sake, I hope that you don't have to think about that, but just in case you do, T. Martin is a name that's come up often because of not only his rich history with understanding the quarterback position, the fact that he's been in the building, but also just his relationship with Lamar. And as you brought in here via our slides, of course, the lineage. Mike Macdonald just fired his offensive coordinator after year one. I think we mentioned that at the end of yesterday during our quick hits, and that's a guy named Ryan Grubb. So Seattle's going to be looking for its next offensive coordinator, and one of the candidates they would like to speak to is T. Martin. What were your thoughts?
Not good. Coming off the fact that Todd Monken could very well be plucked out of Baltimore, and then if you were to take the running back, or excuse me, the quarterback coach on top of it, I guess the good news is that if Todd were gone, the offensive coordinator position would be open. So if John Harbaugh wanted to keep T. Martin, I'm sure T would rather stay here with Lamar if he was given that option. So, but yeah, of course, Mike McDonald wants him. Bobby, this is like the offensive side of what happened on the defensive side last year, where they were just gutted. But all you could do when you had four different coaches on defense that could be defensive coordinators, but you could only choose one. So you're only keeping one out of four, and he kept Zachary Orr, obviously. But like, now are we having the same thing here where you pluck the offensive coordinator, and then now T. Martin's a name, and who knows who else will be? It's not often that like offensive line coaches are advanced, but they don't want to lose another offensive line coach after Coach D passed away, and they've miraculously turned things around. But T. Martin and Lamar have a great relationship also. And look, we're watching the growing pains that happen when your one side of the ball, their staff is completely shed. It's completely plucked. And it was a brutal 10 weeks. And we are lucky that the Ravens made it all the way to the AFC Championship game in the first year of the offense with Todd Monken. But just to expect that, if Todd were to go and then maybe T. Martin on top of it, like, we will feel those growing pains once again.
To me, this is a great reminder of what John Harbaugh does really well. Look at what happened to the Philadelphia Eagles the year after losing both of their coordinators. They folded in the end and were unstable in the end. And that was last year, I believe. And they lost, I want to say, their closing 6 games or something remarkable like that. While the Ravens obviously scuffled at times early this year, particularly given their issues on the back end, here they are. Here they are as one of the hottest teams entering the postseason with a completely new defensive staff. To your point, several months back, the emotions of losing Joe D, John Harbaugh bringing in the long-respected veteran coach in George Warhop to serve as the offensive line guru for them. I just think John deserves a lot of credit because hiring and maintaining hires that end up becoming successful hires and then end up being plucked elsewhere, that is a sign of culture. That is a sign of cultivating talent. And not every team is able to withstand that change, especially the following year. And you think about how much of their defensive staff, to your point, we're going to go Mike McDonald, we're going to go Anthony Weaver, we're going to go Denard Wilson. And wasn't there a couple other like smaller ones as well? Like meaning smaller, lesser roles, but those were the big names.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to still be in the postseason race and as good of a chance as anybody, when you look around the NFL, I think Harbaugh deserves credit.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I see people bashing Mike Tomlin, and I know we both respect Mike Tomlin, but they're like, where's his coaching tree? Whereas you can see a John Harbaugh coaching tree out there, like guys constantly being plucked from his staff. And I will say this, I'm seeing the chat kind of saying that, Lamar Jackson makes offensive coordinators more dynamic. I hear what you're saying. There's truth to that. But look at the version of Lamar Jackson who's been an MVP with Greg Roman, and he's been an MVP with Todd Monken. He was exceptional, and he was an MVP with Greg Roman. He is historic with Todd Monken. Look at the way Todd Monken has empowered him. Look at the way Todd Monken has married the passing game with the rushing game. I heard people arguing that Greg Roman held him back. Offensive coordinators. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday with Dominique Foxworth, and he said he remembers the exact game in the NFL where he was like, dang, Coaches can for sure lose us games because he came from college and he's like, we got the better players. Like, as long as coaches don't get in the way, like whoever has the best roster is going to win. And then he realized when he went up against Bill Belichick, or he was with Bill Belichick, like it was just like, yeah, no, coaches can definitely lose us games. If you don't think that an offensive coordinator can't help or hurt Lamar, that's naive thinking. Lamar's sensational either way. But having the right offensive coordinator absolutely matters. We go from having MVP Lamar to historically great, and it's a shame if they don't give him an MVP. Just look at the difference between the offensive coordinators. It's a big deal.
Absolutely. And a team without a head coach is a team that's directionless.
Yeah.
I mean, a team without a head coach, without the proper staffing that's in place, that is a directionless team. And for 16 years in running, it hasn't been perfect. And it certainly has been far from it since the last Super Bowl. But there's quite a few more head coaches that are out there that are searching for their first. Harbs is going for his second, probably a Hall of Fame resume if you do end up getting that second in terms of being a lock. And so that's what they're all chasing this year. And of course, other teams are trying to chase and emulate and replicate what they've been able to do, which is part of the reason why his staffs have been highly sought after over the course of the last couple off seasons and even dating back to past years as well. While we're on this news kind of start to our show today, I wanted to mention that Jason from Over the Cap put together some notes here and an update on Marcus Williams, Sarah. And of course, you and I still have to, at some point this week, get into Jimmy Smith's clips where from last week's pregame show. I had him on prior to Ravens-Browns. And so I just thought that he gave some interesting insight into what he's seen film-wise for Marcus that led to his, of course, benching. And now his future is starting to become a little less murky. You know it's not going to be in Baltimore, especially after the news that Jason shared from Over the Cap earlier today. I think was it yesterday or when was this?
This morning.
Okay, this morning. Yeah. And let me pull it up too, because I think I actually quote tweeted or screenshot the wrong quote tweet from what I was looking for. So here is Jason's tweet from earlier this morning regarding Marcus Williams. The Ravens and him have agreed on a revised contract that will allow them to use a post-June 1 designation on him next season. And as Brian McFarland, Ravens salary cap analyst, added on to, he thanked Jason for the details and says that Williams' $12 million salary was reduced to $2.1 million, which immediately creates $9.9 million in cap space instead of having to wait until June 2nd. They will then get the remaining $2.1 million in cap savings after June 1. The dead money of $6.723 million in both 2025 and 2026 is unchanged, which is obviously the part that the Ravens can't get away from. But at the same time, perhaps the two sides have come together here and obviously are getting ahead of what will be a parting of ways this offseason.
Yeah, so the fact that like Marcus is willing to work with them, I think shows that, you know what, we both know that this we've run this course. Like it's done from both sides. I imagine from Marcus's point of view, he's like, I just need a fresh start. I got to get out of here. I was in New Orleans. I started 72 games, didn't have an injury history. I come here. Suddenly it kind of like piles up in back-to-back seasons. And then in that third season, when I'm finally healthy, the defense is falling apart. Obviously, he was a massive part of that because when they benched him and brought in Ardarius Washington, plenty of things were solved. So on his end, he's like, I can't get out of here soon enough. And you know what? It shows that, you know, they're still working together because that's fine. I'll redo this contract with you because either way, I got paid what I got paid and I'm going to be let go. So he understands it from that point of view. The Ravens know that it's time to move on. That 5-year, $70 million contract did not work at all. I think Marcus Williams has started 31 of a potential 50 some odd games. And part of it, again, due to injury. And then the other part just to not performing well enough. And when you see that you're going to have to pay Kyle Hamilton, guy that you drafted, I saw a projection earlier today that said he'll get a 5-year, $88 million contract, which If he gets a 5-year 88 and Marcus Williams had a 5-year $7 million, which was 3 years ago, and we know the price keeps going up. Yeah, I think Kyle Hamilton is going to be worth it. And then meanwhile, you've got Ardarius Washington, who will be a restricted free agent next year. You could also, choose to try to sign him to a Rashad Bateman type deal where you try to get him for a couple more years on a modest contract. But there was no doubt from either side that this was coming to an end. And I'm happy to hear that they were still working with each other. And I'm happy that the Ravens, Eric DeCosta, will have that money up front in March rather than having to wait till June. But the Ravens will have to deal with $6.7 million dead money in both 25 and 26. So it was a celebrated deal at the time with his injury history being nil and having all those starts, being a free safety. It's exactly what they needed. It was celebrated at the time. But obviously with the 2020 hindsight, it'll go down as not the greatest signing by Eric DeCosta,
which is rare when they cough up that kind of money and that kind of splash in free agency. Typically, there's a surefire confidence, and maybe there was at the time that he would be the guy that they hoped he would become, and unfortunately, that did not end up coming to fruition. I tell you what, Sarah, this is almost too good of a segue to pass up. Do you want to hear what Jimmy had to say on Marcus before we continue?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm just going to say the chat is correct me. It was 4 years, $88 million. They said that was the projection.
Okay, and then just to be clear, you mentioned it the first time. Marcus signed that $70 million deal the second time back through. You said $7. Just to be clear, though, $70 million, of course, as you said.
$70 million. Yep. Yeah, 5 years, $70 million. Marcus Williams projection for Kyle Hamilton, 4 years, $88 million. That's right. 4 years, $88 million. Okay.
And here is what the former first-round pick in Baltimore and Super Bowl champion Jimmy Smith had to say about Marcus and some of the film that he had watched prior to the benching. And this was this past weekend before the Ravens-Browns regular season finale at the Be More Around Town pregame show that I do for home games.
Say right now, obviously it's not to Marcus as he is a sorry player or something like that. I didn't know who he was before, and when they brought him in, I obviously did my studying afterwards. Like he's an interception guy. He's the interception guy, so I'm thinking that's what he does. And then when he first got here, he got a lot of interceptions. Really.
Oh, sorry. Can we pause that because now I'm distracted? What was that?
I got so many mention questions about this. Like for the audio only audience, Jimmy waved off some dude to try to get his attention.
He literally waved him off like he was the king to like.
You're hilarious because literally everyone was asking me, and it was simply just one of his boys that he showed up to the tailgate with who was having himself a good time, and he was interrupting us throughout parts of the interview, and I think Jimmy had finally had enough.
Yeah, because it's like, that we're doing a live show here, right? Yeah, so I don't know who this guy was. But he was just wanting to have fun with his friend. That's all he wanted.
And notice, Sarah, too, like as soon as Jimmy waved him off, he understood, right? Message understood.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he left. Did he not come back? Just so we can move on from this topic.
Oh yeah, he didn't come back. No.
Okay, he got the message. All right, back to him. So before I got distracted, he's discussing Marcus Williams and his interceptions. Is that it?
Well, he started. Yeah, the beginning of the clip was sort of talking about how initially he was supposed to be the interception guy, and he was early on, and now he's going to get into what happened last year with the shoulder injury. But I think what most people were really interested in hearing is the lack of positional flexibility that Marcus showed this year in particular, which led to his demise.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's
quickly.
continue.
And then when he got his shoulder hurt, the tackling started coming up, and then the tackling kind of came into this year. And one thing I can tell you, like I said, about safeties and John Harbaugh, if you're not a tackling safety, I don't care who you are. I watched him get on Eric Weddle. I watched him get on Ed Reed. I watched him get on every safety that's ever played for the Ravens, as long as I've been there. So when I see the bad angles and I see, I knew immediately like Harbaugh is dying inside because he loves secondary. That's his thing. He loves special teams is his thing, but every day he talks to the secondary.
Yeah, people don't know John Harbaugh was a DB in college.
Yeah,
he started in. I can't remember if he started as the secondary coach before special teams, but I know he's been a secondary coach in the NFL. Okay, sorry.
Because he loves it. So watching what was going on was more of a I bought this. I bought this, so I have to
Use it.
spend my money on this.
Yeah.
I have to use this person, but I don't know if that person necessarily fit our style of defense. I'm not saying he's a bad player, none of that, because obviously he got $70 million. That's not an easy feat to do. So he showed what he needed to show to get there. But when it came down to actually playing our defense, which our safeties are rotational. They're not. You're just not a strong safety. You're just not a free safety. We don't play that here. So you got to be strong safety sometime, and you got to be free. And I think that was what I see as a football player. I see like, oh, he's a true free safety. And by true free safety, I mean he wants to be deep the whole time and just cover deep. When he has to start going down and covering and starting, I didn't see the want to hit people. I didn't see the intent to like cover deep. Like it just, for me, it was like sloppy play.
But what's so interesting is that last year, speaking of want and desire, he played through that shoulder. So why, or did he?
Oh, so that's what I just said. Yes, I played through a shoulder injury, but I'm not a tackler anyway. I didn't want to tackle him no way. That sounds bad to say. But when you watch tape and you're watching this year, like I'm a fan now. I get to sit at home and watch the game, and I watch some of the angles he takes, like the one that Jamar Chase has only killed one team in the league.
And he did it twice this year.
He does it every year. No, he does it every year.
Every year, yeah.
I love Marlon to death. That's my brother. We know that is his toughest matchup.
Was that your first time listening to that specific clip right there?
Yes.
What was your reaction?
I only listened to Brandon Stevens, but it was on the go. Okay, so what I heard him saying is that the reason why he didn't fit in Baltimore was he wasn't a tackler, and that's not what you do in Baltimore. And he says it's a John Harbaugh thing, but I got to imagine most coaches are dying inside if your defensive players don't tackle. Then it sounded like Marcus Williams, as you were trying to give him some grace and talk about how tough he is. So you're like, but he played through the injury last year. And Jimmy's more like, well, then he finally had an excuse to not tackle because everybody knew he was dealing with the injury.
That's my essentially what he was interpretation saying. Of it.
Okay. Yeah. And so then he comes back without the injury and he's still not tackling. Then he talked about angles, which that one on Chase was bad. And then the final thing he pointed out in just not being a fit is you have to be multiple in the Ravens defense. And he's pointing that out with safeties, but that's everywhere. Outside linebackers, they want you to run. They have Michael Pierce dropping. Okay. You have to be multiple. You have to be multiple because part of the design of the Ravens defense, which we definitely saw with Mike McDonald and they're continuing, is deception. They don't want you to know where the blitz is coming, whether it's coming. Am I coming? Am I dropping back? Am I a strong safety? Am I a free safety? And Hamilton's the king of that. Hamilton can go, strong safety, free safety, slot. I mean, he could go outside. He could be linebacker. Like he's everywhere. He is Baltimore Ravens defensive dream. And so if that's all that's going on here, not being able to be multiple or not wanting to be, not tackling, and then just bad angles, like that is probably the best. And I don't know football as well as Jimmy Smith, but that's probably the best explanation I've heard as he's just fallen off since having a great start to his career.
We can probably revisit another time his comments on Brandon Stevens and just sort of evaluating where Brandon was, unless you wanted him now.
Just do it. Let's just do the secondary. Yeah. And then we'll get to super chats and then move forward.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And by the way, this conversation goes over 30 minutes. It's available on my channel and it was from just this past Saturday. And I obviously really want to say thank you to Jimmy because this was not planned. He showed up to the tailgate with his buddy, as I mentioned, and his son, Jimmy Jr., who's become a star on my show, Sarah, by the way. Like his son comes on and he ain't afraid. And then all of a sudden his dad sits down and then his son is off to the side and I see him pull up his phone and Jimmy Jr.'s got his YouTube app up and he's in the comment section. Like he's such a cute kid. He's a great kid. He looks exactly like his dad. He's That's unafraid. Cute. He's fearless. He sits down. He puts the mic on. He's interacting with the chat. So I really enjoyed hanging out with those two. I've done it for a couple years now. And, of course, you and I have had Jimmy on the channel as well. And he is just an all-around good dude and a great father as well. Here is that second clip And this has to do with Brandon Stevens, who, of course, finds himself in the middle of a contract year, and a big, as we've discussed, big target continues to be on his back.
Great secondary. I think Stevens went through his Marcus Peters phase. Honestly, like somebody gets targeted, right? I'm not going to target him. I'm not going to target him. That person gets targeted. So sometimes it is the fact that you're not playing as good, or the fact that they just say, hey, you know what? We're just going to go at him. He doesn't have enough confidence. So I think Brandon Stevens has probably showed the most of any DB we have. Wow, like what's relentless resilience, because he has been getting targeted. And when they won first down, they come after him. But the fact that we got Tre'Davious White and they kept Brandon starting lets you know that like he's a guy that can keep working towards what he's going to. When the ball gets in the air, he finds that calmness and just makes the play, which he does sometimes. But that's what they target the most. The difference between Brandon Stevens is ball skills. It's not that he's not there. It's not that he's not fast enough. It's not that he won't tackle. He does all those things. But when that ball's in the air and that panic hits your heart at corner, it's a different feeling. The ball hits the air for him, panic settles in, I think, a little bit, and he doesn't just gently turn around, go up and grab it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's right there. Like, he turns around, the ball hits his elbow. Like, he's not there. It's just when teams are targeting like that, it's very hard to gain confidence, because you're like, every game I'm getting 12 targets. Yeah. And they're getting like 8, right? And then you read one thing or somebody says one thing, you start to your confidence go down. As a cornerback, your confidence is probably, besides your athletic ability, which is number 1, I would say your confidence is 1B. Like, you need to be just as confident as you are athletic to play corner. If he's a high draft pick, they give him another year because, okay,
it's a contract.
You know what I mean?
It's a contract year for him.
Exactly. So he had to battle something that, you know, a lot of corners have to, you go through this. You go through a part where people think, hey, he's vulnerable, right? And the thing is, once somebody does one thing to you as a corner, they're going to do it to you for the next 4 games, 5 games. If you can't stop it, they'll do it to you all season. So his thing is not being sticky in coverage. It's not doing it's literally having the calmness and the patience when that ball's in the air to locate it, right? Like once you get on a I'm getting beat, you start playing a little bit more tense, a little tight. And I felt like he went through a little bit of that. I think they brought Tre'Davious in. Tre'Davious had a couple good plays on some fades, right? And then Brandon, all of a sudden, you start seeing Brandon in the game. And I watch, obviously, them the most. I watched Brandon get even more close in tight coverage. Like, I don't agree with every PI that they call on Brandon. But he is the one that they target. Just like Marcus was the one that they targeted a few years ago when it was all of us. It's just, if you have laps in your coverage, your game, they're going to come after you. So for him, it's like, oh, you're good. You're really good. But I'm always betting 50-50 that when I throw that ball, I don't know if you're going to turn around. And right now, he's 50-50. I don't know if he will. Yeah. I don't know if he. So that I thought was a big improvement in the last 10 weeks because he's now been in the call. If it is the PI, I'm like, I don't know about that one. Before, I'm like, oh, my God, I'm back. Now I'm like, oh, no, he's right there. Like, I can see his growth.
Sarah, the one quote, and I know that was a little bit longer of a clip than what we usually share, but this is what stood out to me from Jimmy on Brandon Stevens. Quote, the ball hits the air for him. Panic settles in, I think. Mm-hmm. I think a little bit, and he doesn't just gently turn around, go up and grab it. If you have lapses in your game, they're going to come after you. We've seen that. So for him, it's like, oh, you're good. You're really good. But I'm always betting 50-50 that when I throw that ball, I don't know if you're going to turn around. And right now, he's 50-50. That's what stood out to me the most. How about you?
Yeah, that for sure is the money quote. And I agree. And I think that what he's saying is what we've all been saying. Like the Marcus Williams stuff was kind of a new explanation, right? That we hadn't heard. The Brandon Stevens stuff, we could all see this. It's these 50-50 balls. He doesn't have the ball skills. He's not turning around. Although I like the word that he used when he said there's got to be a calmness there. Just be calm. You're right where you need to be, right? Just don't panic. Turn around and hit the ball away or catch it, right? Like, because everything else is right there. The other thing, by putting these 2 clips back to back, which I'm happy we ended up doing, even though that wasn't the plan, is it kind of explains why there's so much patience with Brandon Stevens versus not so much with Marcus Williams, right? Where with Marcus Williams as a coach, you're like, I can't deal with somebody that doesn't want to do the main part of your job, which is tackle, right? I can't do that. I also can't deal with somebody that's not willing to fit within this defense of playing multiple positions. How can I deal with that? I'm having everybody do it. Everybody's asked to do it. It's part of what makes Ravens defense. It's being deceptive and moving around. So if I can't work, how do I work with somebody that doesn't tackle, or maybe doesn't want to switch positions, or maybe he does, but just isn't as skilled as it, right? So that's why there's maybe you're quicker to bench that person. Whereas with Brandon Stevens, you can hear Jimmy Smith going to bat for him and trying to give him grace, because it's like you're doing everything right. You're willing to do everything. And in this position, it's your confidence. And if you're confident, you won't panic. If you're confident, you can be calm. And so these coaches are probably seeing on tape, everything's right there for you, Brandon. Every skill, every technique, everything we're asking you to do. You've got the technique, you've got the willing attitude. It's just the confidence. So they're probably being more patient so as not to destroy that confidence, because so much is right there to be dealt with. So much good is there. Whereas like on the other side, it just seemed like there was less to work with.
Too, Sarah.
Even though the talent is there.
Too, like people forget Brandon was drafted to be a safety, and he was a college running back.
Yeah.
You want to talk about positional flexibility.
Seriously.
This guy embodies that. So, no, I thought that was a great summary by you, having not really watched either one of those clips. I know you had heard bits and pieces, but just wanted to say thanks to Jimmy again for that opportunity to speak with him. And of course, that will not be the last. He also mentioned to everybody, and I wasn't aware of this, he and his family are moving back to Baltimore. So that's exciting. And maybe that means there'll be more opportunities for us and him down the road together.
That's actually surprising, because I know he grew up in California, right? And that's where he is now. That's been his home forever. So interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So let's reset here. We got over 6,000 of you concurrently joining us this afternoon. So great to have you guys with us. Let's get to some super chats. But before we do, today is brought to you by our friends at Manta Sleep. And you guys know, those of you who've been with us understand that Manta Sleep has been a key part of our sponsorship, a key part of this channel. And they make us go at times with the support that they give us throughout the year. They are the official sleep mask partner of us here inside the vault. And what you're seeing on the screen is the Manta Sleep Mask Pro. Both of our families swear by this thing. It gives you true 100% blackout for a deeper sleep. You've got C-shaped eye cups for unbeatable side sleep comfort. Zero pressures applied to your eyelids or lashes, and advanced materials and ventilation are built in for unmatched breathability. If you find something you like, go visit mantasleep.com. We have a specific link for you that's a pinned comment in the live chat. It's also at the top of the show notes where you can go and start to surf around right now. And if you find something you like at checkout, use our discount code. That's VAULT10, VAULT10. You'll get 10% off your next purchase. You'll help out the channel greatly because of the support that they give us. And of course, hopefully you'll enhance your sleep while doing so. On to the super chats we go. James Cady says, big week for the DMV. Redskins, a.k.a. Commanders, Sunday night. Ravens Saturday, bringing my bro to the game. Roquan, Ed Reed, or Lamar jersey. Chat, let it help out James here. He's got a bunch to choose from. Flock, help me choose. Go Ravens, go Vault. And Deshaun Davis, partner.
I think teams should have to wait till the Super Bowl is over to meet with coaches. I think that was part of the problem in the AFC Championship game.
Nikita says, Todd's been there and done that with Jacksonville, thank you. Chicago was he on Jacksonville staff? Is there a familiarity there? I got to go back and look. I know he's with Tampa Bay. He was in Jacksonville, wasn't he? Anyway, Chicago's got all types of issues. Todd's good right here. So Nikita is recruiting Todd to stay because of the other, and I'm sure that's I mentioned this on yesterday's live stream on my personal channel. Sure, you want to evaluate the opportunities of what are out there, and especially when you're in a great situation in Baltimore right now. But for the most part, when you are a coordinator at the NFL level, and there's only 32 of the most coveted jobs available in the entire world, you're obviously going to want to try your hardest to grab one of those. Did you happen to see Todd's resume?
Yeah, he was in Jacksonville as the wide receivers coach from 07 to 10.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Neil Harold for you.
Hello from the UK's Herefordshire? Is that how we say it? I don't know.
We're going to need some help on that one, Neil.
Yeah, can't wait to hear Bobby pronounce that. Yeah, that was me after the recent. Hold on, I looked up. There's definitely different ways you can pronounce this city in Virginia, and I will not be using one of them, as you can see, but you can say Norfolk. One acceptable way of saying that is Norfolk. So that's funny. He wanted you to read this, but I got stuck with it. He said, first time super chat, but have been a Patreon for 2 seasons and love the content you both give us. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Neil, you are funny. You got multiple angles in this super chat, right? We have no idea how to pronounce Herefordshire or Herefordshire or Herefordshire. I mean, which one is it, Neil? Thank you for the euros. And then I know this for sure. If you go down into Virginia and say Norfolk,
which I did not just say, but
you
I did
did
say
not.
it before. I did before.
But anybody who does, especially as a non-Virginia native the way I am, and you are as well, we will get ripped, which is why I went the local way the first time around, which I won't do for the quality of this show or for the what we try to do with this show. What's the right word for that? Thank you, Neil. Appreciate you. Sod Blitz 34, and I guess this is me. Last day till the MVP vote. Ballots are due tomorrow. Never once heard a TV analyst bring up the schedule. Allen's 3-3 versus teams with a winning record to Lamar's 9-3. That's game over. Deshaun, for you.
Seahawks, the NFC Ravens.
Seattle did not make the postseason in Mike McDonald's first year. We'll see if Geno Smith is their quarterback next season or if they try to retool through the draft. I don't believe they have a nice where do they pick in the draft? We had our slide up yesterday. I can't remember where they are. Mars, for you.
Firing Harbs means no more coaching changes because we won't have the cream of the crop coaching talent in the building anymore. Harbs scouts everyone. I'll just say Todd Monken had a lot of offers, and he said in his opening press conference when he was introduced to Baltimore that John and the Ravens, what's the word I'm looking for? Stability was a big part of what made him want to come to Baltimore.
And remember the phrase that was used by Harbs, we're casting a wide net. They sure did. I remember Dave Canales doing a bunch of studying up on him, who at the time, I believe, was with Seattle. I think he was with Seattle under Pete Carroll. And then, of course, he got the head coaching job with the Carolina Panthers and just finished up his first year there. By the way, Seattle is set to pick 18th overall in April in the first round, just so that we're clear.
The chat cracks me up. Anytime we give Harbaugh any sort of compliment, there are some Harbs haters that are like, nope. They're like, Harbs doesn't scout. Like, how many people have signed here, especially veterans? Steve Smith Sr., like whether it's coaches or veteran players, all like many of them say John Harbaugh. Like nobody, like you can be mad at Harbs in the postseason since the last Super Bowl, and you can be mad at his game management, and maybe you can be mad that he holds on to people for too long. But you don't have to take everything away from the man. My goodness, it's hilarious.
So do we think that those that you're referencing in the chat, if we had Steve on again, if we had some of these guys that have spoken so highly of him on the show again, will they react to them the same way that they're reacting to us? Or is this just energy towards us? I'll tell you what it is. They're spoiled. Those that are in the chat, and this is just me saying it, not you, you are spoiled. If you feel like John Harbaugh isn't the guy in Baltimore, you are spoiled. That's what you are. You're spoiled. Don C writes.
Gosh. Oh, that's just
me.
funny. I just know if we want to
you.
trigger chat, all we have to do is say something nice about Harbaugh. Like Harbaugh has a nice daughter. No, he's a terrible father.
Amazing. Don C. I was hoping that Todd's age would be a deterrent from another team taking him as a head coach. Nobody takes from the Chiefs. They know it's Andy Reid. Coaching ages, I feel like these days is so. I mean, look at Bill Belichick. Now, did he get frozen out of the NFL because of his age? I think he turned 73 in April, if I'm not mistaken. That begs the question, but you didn't take away from UNC's pursuit of him. That's for sure.
Right.
Going back to college at 72. Chris, for you.
Really not in the mood to lose more coaches right now. I'm with you, Chris.
Eric Murphy says, not a contest winner, but just got my first homage shipment, quality clothing, and speed delivery. P.S.
Ooh.
I like vault dwellers for our names. We were trying to figure out
vault dwellers.
what we were coining, all of you who are our loyal listeners, subscribers, viewers. Eric, thank you. We will have a homage t-shirt giveaway as we always do on Wednesdays. We'll get back to that after, of course, being a little bit off last week due to the holidays and whatnot. I think we did a Friday one, if I'm not mistaken. So thanks, Eric. Let us know which one you got too. Lindsay Bustler, for you.
I want the Super Bowl win for Lamar so bad. He deserves it. And I want to tell all his haters to STFU and go take a nap.
Minx the Cutie says, sending love from the ATL. Love you both, as you are the purple dynamic duo for Ravens content. Thanks for elevating and keeping the national media in check. Hashtag Vault for Life. Appreciate you, Minx. Dreams.
Happy birthday to Mama Dreams and happy birthday to Lamar Jackson, birthday twins.
Heck yeah.
Oh,
Lamar
Mama Dreams. Okay, so his mom's birthday is today and Lamar Jackson. Got it.
Yep. Queon down in Virginia. And we will have a slide on the birthday boy as well and the birthday mama, apparently. Lamar turns 28 today. Happy birthday to your mother, Queon.
Ooh, I just saw Keepers of the Vault. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I feel like we've got a lot of candidates. At some point in the offseason, we're going to have to find a way to how to vote on this.
Yeah.
Let's see. OG Pearled is me, right? Oh, no, well, it can't be, though. Whenever OG comes through, you need this one.
Whoa, dummy. Happy B-Day to the GOAT, LJ8, hashtag Truz.
Q Dan says Lamar Jackson has faced 10 Pro Bowlers in the North, while Allen has faced 0. Lamar's AFC North opponents are 22 and 29, while the AFC East teams are 17 and 34 versus Allen. More stats that are being compiled for the MVP race, some of which has to do with past seasons, which, of course, is not a part of the equation. Eduardo.
Flying cross country from California to the bank Ravens flock. Good job.
And John B with a 50 spot on this Tuesday.
Woo!
Appreciate you, John. What's up, flock? Just got done listening to Miss Taylor spreading her love of joy. LOL. Sorry, bad joke. But how do you feel about this upcoming game? I don't know what he's referencing, by the way. Did Joy Taylor address the allegations in the lawsuit? I can't imagine anybody speaking on it. That's what their legal counsel would tell them, you would think. So not sure what you're referencing there, John, but obviously we're aware of what's going on with Fox Sports. He goes on to say, I hope they don't take the Steelers as a joke this time around. They didn't the second time around. This will be, of course, round 3. And while we're on the conversation of folks that are in the California area, because we know we have some of you in the live chat, we know that Jimmy's moving back from California, as we referenced earlier on. Super Bowl champ is in the chat as well. Femi Ayambadejo. We got to give Fem some love. That's our guy right there. Fem, Happy New Year to you. Always exchanging good texts with him. He's got, oh, by the way, he's got a Raven that is on his big board, if you will. Maybe we'll have to get into that with him coming off the college football playoff. He's got a few that he likes as the early prep for the NFL draft comes around. And Neil is helping us out.
Glad to provide some fun with how to pronounce. Okay, here we go. Oh, Hera Fudger? Hera Fudger? That can't be right. Herefordshire.
Wow. Well, Neil, we took some swings, and it was a few swings and a miss. That is absolutely diabolical.
What he could be doing is just setting me up with a terrible pronunciation so I sound dumb.
Neil would never.
Herefordshire.
Neil would never do that.
Did I just get it? Herefordshire?
Neil?
Sounds English.
Let us know, Neil.
Huh?
Sod Blitz 34 says firing Harbs because of coaches leaving is like dropping a bomb to stop an outbreak of fires. And Joy Walker, that gets us caught up on Super Chats.
Oh, boy. Why does it keep landing on me? Here for Herefordshire. LOL, you two are hilarious.
You are as well, Joy. And Neil, this is all your fault. We appreciate the Euros, by the way.
Is it Herefordshire? Because Luke K says Herefordshire. That sounds better to me.
That also sounds familiar.
Yeah. Herefordshire sounds real good.
So, anyway, with that,
the chat are
we are coming up. We are coming up on 7,000 concurrents. We would love to hit that number before all is said and done on this Tuesday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. Thank you guys for being here. Like the video if you haven't already done so. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content. Well, we've shared Ben. Let's reset on that one. We have shared Ben Roethlisberger clips in the past because he has a YouTube channel. It's called Channel 7. And I feel like we should do it as well today, being that ballots are due for NFL MVP. And those that obviously have the esteemed privilege of voting. We will get to some clips in just a second as well of at least one MVP voter who has revealed who he's riding with when it comes to Lamar versus Josh. But the guy that was once the villain, and maybe he always will be in your mind, Big Ben Roethlisberger had this to say when ranking his top 7 quarterbacks, Sarah, this season. It's, again, just the 2024-2025 NFL regular season. He goes in reverse order, 7 down to 1. Here he is.
This list is tricky because it's this year. It's not who do I think is the best quarterback in the NFL, or it's who do I think played the best this year. Doesn't necessarily mean they had the best stats. Maybe they led their team to victories. Maybe they won a lot of games. Maybe they won with less. Who knows what it is? But this is who I think played, in my opinion, the top 7 quarterbacks in the league this year. Starting from 7 to 1, Justin Herbert. Number 6, Sam Darnold. Number 5, Jared Goff. Number 4, Patrick Mahomes. Number 3, Josh Allen. Number 2, Joe Burrow. And number 1, Lamar Jackson.
Can you do just the very end? Oh, you have it. Okay, good.
Oh, I've got it right here. The top 7 quarterback rankings. Ben Roethlisberger's for the 2024-2025 NFL regular season in reverse order. Justin Herbert 7. Sam Darnold 6. Jared Goff 5. Patrick Mahomes 4. Josh Allen 3. Joe Burrow 2. And Lamar Jackson 1.
So just to be clear, he with people talking that it should be Josh Allen. Is he in the Hall of Fame? Is Ben Roethlisberger already in there? I don't know if has it been 5 years since he retired?
He's not eligible yet.
He's not eligible yet. Okay, well, he's a future Hall of Famer for sure. And listen, I think I haven't watched Justin Herbert too much, but the top 6 have had a phenomenal season. Patrick Mahomes more for just last minute heroics rather than just stats. We're living in a golden age right now, a golden year of quarterback, because a lot of these guys, maybe from 1 through 6, may have had a better case last year to win MVP, right? Including Lamar, 2024 Lamar over 2023 Lamar. Like, a lot of these guys could have won it last year. I mean, it's been a phenomenal year. But the guy that most people are arguing over Lamar, a future Hall of Famer, has his number 3. Not just behind Lamar, but behind Lamar and Joe Burrow. To me, now these are just rankings. He's not talking about MVP, right?
Just based on play. The word MVP was never used when divvying it up.
Okay. Well, then that's
but
fair.
It's suggested, though. It's certainly suggested.
It's suggested, but obviously he's not considering that Joe Burrow isn't in the playoffs. He's looking at, you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Whereas most valuable player, like, you have to be in the playoffs to be an MVP. So I would be curious if a follow-up question would be asked in terms of MVP. But it is, without a doubt, Lamar Jackson is having a historic season. And I understand that Josh Allen has set some history too, in terms of like how many times he's thrown for 40 touchdowns in consecutive years. Like, that's very impressive, but that obviously is not an argument to win MVP this year. He does have that game where he had 3 touchdown rushes and 3 touchdown passes. And that's great for his MVP ballot, but obviously you need to take into consideration the entire year. And when you look at the entire year, it's so abundantly clear to me that Lamar Jackson is having the best year.
Well,
so I'm right there with Ben Roethlisberger on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And a couple other guys, as we were tweeted at, we were emailed, we were DM'd. Dominique Foxworth, former Raven.
Yep.
Ryan Russillo, popular media personality and voter for both NBA MVP and NFL. Is he an NFL MVP voter? Or is that Dominique?
Dominique is not a voter, but the way Russillo's talking in this clip, Here's the problem. We don't have a full list, right? We don't have a list. I have a list of last year, but we don't have a list of this year. So we don't know, but the way Ryan talks here, he's making it sound like he had a vote because he had one in the NBA, and then he says who he voted for. He's like, yeah.
Okay.
So I think based off of his words, he has
yes.
an MVP vote, but I don't have that official list.
Just to be clear, you and I are interpreting this correctly, and I'll be curious to see, similarly, you and I are interpreting the clip that we're about to share with you the same way, and we're curious to see if the chat does as well. This is a little bit more of an extended clip. It goes about 4 or 5 minutes. It's between Ryan.
Are you sure it's 4 or 5 minutes?
Well, I have it all together.
Oh, you do.
So what you're going to listen
with
to
the playoffs?
It does.
Okay, let's pause in between topics then.
And I'll let you lead this because this was your idea to bring it in.
Okay.
Again, we want to say thank you to all of you who made us aware of this. By the way, we're 50 away from 7,000 concurrents. So thank you guys for a jam-packed, big-time Tuesday. Thank you for being here. And here is Ryan Russillo and Dominique Foxworth.
Okay, so
going with Lamar again for MVP.
Hold on, okay, so that did not start with playoffs.
Well, no.
Okay.
Which is what you just asked me, and I said yes. But what I should have followed up on is that it's starting with his MVP vote.
Okay, so it's starting with his MVP vote, and I just want to real quick before we move on to it. The chat said in that podcast with Ben Roethlisberger, he later did say he thinks Lamar is the MVP. Okay, so just make that clear there. Okay, so he's starting off explaining who he voted for, and they get into I think, fascinating conversation about stats versus narrative.
I ended up going with Lamar again for MVP. I think Allen is like, if that's your pick, I'm not going to scream and yell about it. But I don't know when it dawned on me. Maybe it was back like talking with Dilfer, where I was like, I think that 7 to 9 interceptions is kind of the sweet zone for a quarterback. All right. Because if you have like none, and I know Brady's had some absurd years, and Rodgers has had just ridiculous years where they're so dialed in and they know everything that's happening, where an interception is basically the defender did something he wasn't supposed to do. Right. Yeah. But with Lamar in this new offense, especially when you go through the interceptions and the first 3 of the season weren't even on him. Like, are we looking at somebody that needs to maybe pull the trigger a little bit more? Because like when I looked at the Caleb stuff, I'm like, this is actually a bad stat for him. Right. This isn't a good stat. This is a bad stat for him, even though it sounds cool in the record books.
I get what you're saying, but then you look at the production, it's incredible. And I would even argue that the 4th interception is not on him either. Like, that's man coverage. You sit down in the zone. Bateman, like, you sit down in the zone, you keep running, and man,
it just looks so much worse than the other 3 because of the coverage and what the options were to that throw. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you can, we want to settle on there was one interception that was Lamar's fault. That's fine, and maybe there were some dropped interceptions somewhere along the way.
I'm sure there were, but
that's hilarious because you and I were talking about the interceptions and we brought them all up on the screen, right? And we showed, and we became nitpicky. Like, you were like, oh, okay, well, the mark of the 3 drops. It's like, I guess Mark was the furthest away, but like Dominique is like, okay, if we want to say that Lamar Jackson was to blame for 1 interception, okay, we can deal with that. And that is what's insane. And that's where the history is. Nobody in the NFL, Bobby, nobody had fewer interceptions when they threw for 40 or more touchdowns. Like, we're talking about an NFL history with Tom Brady, with Peyton Manning, with Steve Young, with Joe Montana, like Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes now. Like, any of those guys, if they threw for over 40 touchdowns, they did not have as few as interceptions as Lamar. And here we are laughing about how maybe 1 was his fault. But as a defensive back, he's saying, no, it was on Bateman because it wasn't in zone. He wasn't supposed to stop.
That is what's so wild. Just to go back to that for a half second, because I really remember going back and forth with you on that show thinking, oh, he was just trying to find the soft spot in the zone. Dominique, it was man. It was man. Like, we were looking for excuses. We were looking for reasonings of why Bateman, could have not been at fault, or maybe, just maybe, right, this was Lamar's miscommunication. No, it was Bateman. He shouldn't have stopped. There was no soft spot.
right. And there's the DB able to give this and so like that's insane. And by the way, when I said Allen had history too, I meant to say he scored 40 touchdowns in each of the last 5 seasons. I accidentally said through. So he has scored 40 touchdowns. But again, that is neither here nor there. We're talking about this season. And so Ryan's question of like, he was liking it to Bears quarterback, whose name is slipping me right now.
Caleb Williams,
where he's like, wait, that few interceptions isn't good for him because he's not even taking shots that he should. And here Dominic is like, yeah, that's true when you have low production. But when you have 4,100 passing yards, we're talking about an interception rate that is hands down best in the NFL this season. And I need to go look at it historically. But I remember NFL Network did that. And he was like number 3 all time, something crazy with how low his interception rate with this much production. And so them saying all this and kind of setting it up, Dominique is now about to talk about why he used to be all Allen. And now that he's talking about these stats, why he's switched over to Lamar.
The fact that when you watch the highlight tape or his low light tape of interceptions, it all is like, damn, they sure let my man down. It's hard for me to be like, hey, this is rough. And if he had low production numbers, then I would agree with you. But he doesn't. I think I was a Josh Allen should win MVP guy until probably 2 weeks ago. And I think it was brought to my attention that how much I was leaning on the story of Josh Allen and not the production. And I think what I do on some of these type of decisions is ask myself, like, which way do I want to be wrong? You know, it's like, let's say that you're wrong. Which way are you most comfortable with being wrong? And I am very comfortable with being wrong about the MVP putting up the numbers that Lamar has put up this year.
Okay, so I want to pause it right there. So he's saying he switched from Allen to Lamar because he said he was so caught up in the Allen story, right? It's like it's his time. He had a couple of those good games against number 1 seeds, and I do think that is very impressive. I'm not going to take that away from Josh. I just don't know that it's enough in the totality. And so he had to like face himself and say, wait a minute. Yeah, this is a great story. But if I look back 5 years from now, and because it's so tight, there's going to be a side that's wrong, right? With it being so tight. It's not this unanimous thing in 2019 or 49 out of 50 votes in 2024. This is going to be tight. And so he's like, if I'm going to be wrong and people look back on this, I got to be feel comfortable with what I'm wrong with. And I'm going to be like, 10 years from now, no. He had the lowest interception rate. He had 4 interceptions and maybe one of them was wrong. He had 4,100 yards and 900 rushing, which was historic and transformative. Like how I can't be wrong. I can't look back and feel good about that 5 years from now.
In other words, he got caught up in the narrative.
Yes.
You said the story, which is also the narrative.
The narrative.
The
yes.
national narrative that so often infuses NFL circles from a national storyline standpoint. That takes away from the integrity of what is a storied award. So
yes, and I'll just put this in here. I didn't grab the clip because I thought this sufficed, but I was watching everybody's favorite show, The Facility, yesterday, and James Jones, who's been, campaigning for Lamar to win it, and obviously Emmanuel Acho is the only one that has the vote on that show. And Emmanuel finally backed off and said, "Man, I don't know anymore." And he's like, "I got to go back and watch stuff." And then he brought up Lamar having King Henry again, which we talked about a lot yesterday. And James Jones was like, "I hear you. Derrick Henry has 1,900 yards. I hear you." He goes, "But this isn't like, oh, Lamar had a good season." He was like, he got 1,900 yards and Lamar still put up 5,000 more. And then he brought up these historic stats that we're talking about. He's like, bro, he's like, "I hear you. King Henry helps. But it's not like he's just like having the same, like this is historic." And he kept looking at him. He's like, "MVP voter. It's history though. MVP voter. It's history though." And Acho just kept laughing and laughing. And he was like, he heard the points. Whereas before Acho's been like Allen. Now he's like, okay, well now I got to stop and think about this for a minute. And it's because of this type of stuff too. Like Like, I think that sometimes narrative can overpower everything else if the stats are close, but it's not even close right now.
Yep.
It's not even close. All right, should we continue?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll say that the other thing that jumps out to me this season and last season for the MVP race is I'm reminded how much of the stuff is out of their control, because I think we're having an entirely different conversation if the Chiefs aren't the number 1 seed. Like, the Chiefs have lost a few more games and the Bills were the 1 seed and Josh Allen was on the best team. I think where Josh Allen is running away with MVP. Or even if the Jets were better and last week was a big showdown to win the division and Josh Allen won that game against the Jets, we'd have an entirely different conversation. Like, the story has, in order for the story to beat the stats, the story has to be so good. And as much as I think we all thought the Ravens were better, the Bills were still projected to win 10 wins, and they did pretty well. Or they did incredibly well, but it's not like he just pulled a trash pile to the top of the league. So it's hard for me to feel comfortable. If I'm going to be wrong, the way that I would like to be wrong is the one that's supported by the numbers, not the one that's like a lot more about storyline.
Yeah, I don't like Lamar's won it. Like, that's not what the award should be. I still have some regrets about my Embiid vote over Jokic, but I realize that those regrets weren't there when it was happening, because the way that season closed with those two players, I felt fine about the Embiid vote because it was so tough. It was a really tough vote, and it was I think not as tough last year, but the order for the MVP vote for me was really tough, because I'm sitting there looking at my group going, whoever I have fourth here it's gonna feel ridiculous that I have this person fourth.
Can you give us, Bobby, the background? So he's saying that he's looking back on his NBA MVP voting and is showing that maybe he has a little bit of regret. Can you for those that aren't as following the NBA as closely, what's the background to that?
Just the back and forth and the closeness of the race between two of the greatest centers that we've ever seen, one of which plays for your favorite team, of course, and Nikola Jokic, and then for Philadelphia, Joel Embiid. These guys have been so back and forth in recent years. And I was actually just pulling up the years in which they've won the award, these guys, because they've gone back and forth. So 2024, just this past year, was Jokic. He also has 2022 and 2021 accolades of that award. And of course, he's an NBA champion from 2023, which is something that Embiid is still chasing. As far as Joel's his overall resume, he's yet to win an overall MVP. He's 2023 was his first. And aside from that, it's been all Jokic. So it's essentially 3 versus 1, meaning has there been voter fatigue that's gone with Jokic, much like some have said there is with Lamar this year.
Right. And so maybe that's what made him ultimately sway to Lamar. He's like, I'm not doing that again. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that again. Okay. Just a little bit more from this clip.
So I don't think that a vote for Josh Allen is necessarily wrong, but then I always ask myself, like, if Lamar had never won one, would we be having this conversation? And the fact that they close strong, that, record, I think sometimes, like, whatever propaganda is being put out there, it'll be like, well, how can you do this when you look at the record and you look at the seeding and all that stuff? And it's like, I don't know. It's not going to be the end all be all for me. And it's the same thing in basketball. Like, if you're a 4 or 5 seed, but you're 3 wins behind, and I'm supposed to vote for the 2 seed guy because it sounds better. I think the 1 seed thing would play. This would be a ton of momentum for Buffalo. Both of these guys did incredible jobs carrying teams that at many times this year felt like the only way they had a chance to win was because of who was behind center.
So that's the first time I've really heard, because I'm a little bit surprised, and I saw chat bring this up earlier, that these MVP voters aren't talking more about strength of schedule. When Josh Allen has 13 wins and Lamar has 12, one's a 3 seed and one's a 2 seed. Like, he's saying, if you got the 1 seed, then okay, that adds to your story, but you're the 2 seed, 1 game ahead of the 3 seed. And so to him, that wasn't very convincing to be like, okay, I should hand it over to Allen more. And if he wanted to, on top of it, he could have talked about the strength of schedule, which obviously the Ravens had a much, much tougher slate as they've played everybody that's made the AFC playoffs this year. One other thing, we won't play it, but they talked a little bit about Lamar's reputation in the playoffs. And obviously we're coming up against the Steelers, who have, outside of just this last game that they had each other, the Steelers have performed very well against Lamar. So you have kind of like a double kryptonite, if you will, that it's the playoffs when Lamar has the reputation that he has, although people don't give him the credit in the games he did play well. And then you've got the Steelers, who outside of this last game have played him really well. So you have that kind of double whammy. And Dominique was like, here's why I'm not worried this time. He's like, and I definitely been worried before. He's like, in the past, the key was just blitz Lamar. Make him throw from the pocket and blitz him. And he said, throughout the regular season, you would see that worked, and they never solved it. And so then they get to the postseason. It's like, okay, well, here they are. Some of the best players are just blitzing nonstop, and they couldn't solve it. And he's like, the reason why I'm not worried this time around is because Lamar has solved the blitz. He has solved it. And whether it's the blitz or otherwise, like, he's been fine. And so hopefully that is an addition to Derrick Henry being out there, that Lamar understanding the game more like Neo in the Matrix and being able to call things at the line of scrimmage will also be a difference maker this time around.
Super chats, then quick hits?
Yep.
Angie Carr says Lamar is him. MV3 is coming back to Baltimore. Hashtag speak into existence. Shout out big time Bobby and prime time Sarah. The Vault's about to get an Emmy. She is building us up right now, and I'm here for it. Appreciate you, Angie. And Chef
and the almost 7,800 people that are with us right now. This is bananas.
I was going to just mention that as well. We should probably give everyone an update that we're coming up on 8,000 concurrents right now. Sarah's X or Twitter is going off. The Vault on YouTube is going off. Great to have you guys with us. We appreciate you, as always, for all the support that you give us. And we feel like this is going to be just a massive, massive month should this team go on the run that they're expected to. Oh, this is going to be a hilarious one for you to read. Chef Trez comes in.
Why did Bobby blush when he saw Minx's super chat? I don't even know what did Minx say. Bobby Boo Lovin is undefeated. It's probably all the Pilates going.
Minx the Cutie was complimenting us on our show, and Chef is claiming that I was blushing. I have permanent, just blush state skin. That's how it is when you're as white as I am. See how it's kind of always
you got a little
slightly. What is it actually called though? Is that rosacea or eczema? Is it eczema?
Is that what it is? I just remember, you know what I always think of when I see like pink cheeks? If you're a Seinfeld watcher, they had a whole episode where George was being set up on a blind date, and he was like, does she have a pinkish hue? Jerry's like, a pinkish hue? He's like, yeah, I like a good pinkish hue. So that's what I always think of. Yeah.
Perfect. But by the way, I love when Minx compliments us. Absolutely. Keep it coming, Minx to Cutie. Benton Niece says, grew up and live in Minnesota. Ravens fan my whole life. I've watched the Vikings go through coaches like scratch-off tickets. Harbs is an outstanding coach. I love that reference. TJ Flock.
How concerned are you about Ravens' ability to play in the cold? Do you know of anything the Ravens / other teams do to get prepared, put hands in ice, LOL? I will say, I don't know that there's like an inability there, but I do think that Lamar plays better in the non-cold. He's a Florida, he was Florida born and bred. And I always feel better there. That said, I feel like he's made huge strides. Like, I don't feel like the cold has hurt him at all this year. In fact, it was the receivers that had a hard time holding on to the balls that were, in the cold and not as soft to come and meet the hands. But it was funny if you watched Wired. I don't know if it was at halftime or before the game, but Nate Wiggins put on black surgical gloves underneath his football kind of sticky gloves.
Nice.
And the coaches were like, what are you doing? He's like, it makes your hands soft. And then he goes out and gets a pick six. It's like, okay, everybody put on those surgical gloves. Let's go. Because he reeled that ball in with ease.
Fun little nugget too from Kyle Van Noy's podcast on Yahoo Sports. One, he refers to Nate as Nathaniel, their locker mates, so they've become close. There's a 12-year age gap between the two of them, which I find to be hysterical. So some refer to him as Nasty Nate. Sarah, if we're looking for a nickname, maybe we can go Nathaniel. And two, apparently Marlon Humphrey went out of his way to ensure that pick six football was secure so that Nate could obviously make sure it's in his man cave, which I thought was a kind of a cool veteran savvy move to make. Let's keep these super chats rolling. Neil, remind me what the last pronunciation was before I say this, because
Hair
whatever.
for sure. Hair for sure.
Hair for sure. Pronunciations were spot on eventually in the end. So it looks like we're going to go with hair for sure. Final answer. Dreams for you.
Dreams. Code breakers. Ooh, every vault needs a code. There's some good ones out there.
The nicknames continue. I kind of like how it's become this brainstorming session.
Yeah.
Queon, appreciate you. Let us know, guys, if you feel like we're essentially, just in case, because we almost have 8,000 people in here, so perhaps people missed it from earlier in the week, but we're trying to come up with a tagline. Who do you refer to? When you're a Ravens fan, you refer to yourself as the Ravens flock, right? Or a member of the Ravens flock. What should Vault listeners, subscribers, viewers be referred to as? That's what we're looking for. Not a fan says, I've been working, so I could have missed it. Did you all mention the fact that Lamar is the first player in league history to lead the league in yards per rush with 6.6 and yards per pass attempt?
No.
8.8.
But I will be looking that up, and if it's true, I will tweet that so more people hear it.
You already know.
That's bananas.
And Matt, for you.
LJ number 1 in yards per attempts and yards per carry. That's twice in a row. He said, let that sink in. I will let that sink in.
And more from Angie. They talk,
history.
quote, narratives when it comes to MVP, but none other than Lamar has dealt with more. Lamar's, quote, narrative never stops and yet keeps silencing doubters, adding chapters to his legendary story. Nice play on words there, Angie. And thank you for your second super chat today. Another one for TJ Flock as well.
What's your ultimate goal / dream for the vault / your definition of success? Is there a dream job for either of you that would make you love the vault? Ooh.
Wow. TJ.
It would have to be, first of all, on my side, Bobby, we're obviously in two very different positions. I'm a mother of 4 and you are a single person as of now. Although obviously we're working on that, as we talk about on almost every single episode.
The double date didn't work. For those of you who are wondering, the New Year's Eve went from, just so everyone's aware, I'm back starting fresh. Continue.
Okay. Well, I didn't get the update on that offline, so we'll have to chat afterwards. Yes. Okay, so for me, working at home is massive. It's massive, massive, massive. And quite frankly, the Ravens were awesome to me because I started working mostly from home when I had my first son. Yeah, so I started there in 2005, and then I started working from home in 2009. So all those years, I mean, I'd go in on Mondays and some select days, but for the most part, I worked from home. So whatever another gig would have to be, I want to do it from this chair. We're lucky we live in an age where technology allows that to happen. But I don't want to work for anybody. I like that we have complete free reign over what we say and what we cover. And I like having a partner rather than having a boss. And so it would have to be massive. And my kids would have to be older, so I don't know that would happen for me anytime soon. Because that's my number one goal is to be with them. What about you? But also, yeah, what is our definition of success and our goals? I don't even know right now. Well, this is a side gig for me.
This is definitely. It's funny. It's tax season, right? Quarter 4 is coming to an end, of course. For you're tallying up how revenue looked and how 2024 was. And I'm happy to share, without sharing too much, that this was just a career year for me. This was a career year for us. Mm-hmm. There was so much unpredictability, uncertainty when we launched this. I felt that really, really deep down, given the lack of security that comes with starting something on your own, launching an LLC, being shown the door by a cushy radio job, even though I just more than doubled what I was making there for 2024, which I'm really feel incredibly grateful for.
I honestly think that more people would leave their jobs that are in the traditional media, like the big names that cover the Ravens, if they knew. Yeah. how the ceiling is so much higher as an independent content creator than working for somebody else. Even when I worked with the Ravens, because there's a million people that want their jobs, and so you get paid very low. And so I think that if other people knew the potential, they'd probably walk away too.
Right. Let me put it this way. I shared it with my parents last night, separate texts, and my dad called me, and the first thing he said was, "I fell off my chair."
Yeah.
like he was just so, and some of that has to do with maybe a lack of awareness for just how viciously I've been attacking this.
That's
from
the
every
other
angle.
thing. That's another thing, though. Not
Um,
everybody's built for this because it takes an entrepreneurial spirit, right? And so I'm happy that I have you as a partner because I don't have the time to even do all of that. Like you have to be, I've noticed this. A lot of people just want to be close to something that's already built, right? It offers security. It offers like, look what I'm close to. So it offers you clout. Like whenever I used to say I work for the Ravens, people would be like, what? You know what I mean? And so but that, like for me, that clout wasn't like a motivator. Like my motivation is more like putting my priorities in life and then being the best at my priorities, not somebody else's priorities. And so while people who are great content creators, not all of them can go out and build a business like you've done, both personally and with us together on the Vault.
That's been the best part of it,
Yeah.
because I think what I struggle with on a daily basis as TJ takes us down this road of no return potentially, but what I struggle with on a daily basis, and I think it's even magnified when maybe something goes below the wayside, the way this potential dating thing was last week. I was, as I told you, I was really excited coming off of New Year's Eve. I felt like something had really been struck, with a connection, and distance just unfortunately is not going to make that tenable right now, which is fine. But when you're full time and you work at home and you don't have 4 kids and you don't have a significant other,
Lonely.
it's very isolating and lonely. I'm looking at a number right now in the top left hand of our streaming service.
8,000.
We haven't hit this number probably since free agency day one.
No, Bobby, I don't think ever.
Back in March.
8,000? I don't think we hit it. I don't think we hit 8,000 in March.
Maybe ever. And so
Yeah.
I'll use that as a way of saying right now, this has been an awesome super chat, TJ, and you're making us reflect. That 8,000 number is unbelievable. And it comes with a great amount of gratitude, pride, and motivation for what's to come. That 8,000 number is not going to fulfill me 8 hours from now when I'm sitting on my couch on a Tuesday weeknight. Tilly's up north right now. She's coming back down this weekend with my brother, and we're snowed in. And I don't have anybody to enjoy what we've built with. You and I enjoy it with each other, but you have lives when you're off. You have a life when you're off the clock. And I'm not saying I don't. I'm just saying I'm ready for some companionship, because I think as much as I don't want to go back and would never go back, barring something astronomical to my previous life, and I think that's kind of what you were alluding to earlier on. It's different not having an office space, a shared office space. It's different not having coworkers, and you're the best coworker, but you're a virtual coworker.
Same to you.
There's a lack of connectivity that I think if there's one thing that I struggle with, and particularly given some of the slow days in the off season, January is never a problem. January is an incredible month, but there are times where, and that's probably why, as I get way too personal, that's probably why I've been chasing companionship so hard in the dating world. A lot of you probably were like, well, wait, it was just 2 months ago that you and Madison were hot to trot. Well, that's true. And obviously her being out of market just took that out of the equation.
Long distance though. That's a problem.
But I'm really, really ready for somebody to enjoy this with. My dad is congratulating the all-out heck out of me last night for hitting the number that I did revenue-wise for 2024. And the first thing that blurted out, and again, maybe this is just due to coming off being a little deflated from New Year's Eve and whatnot. The first thing I told him, I said, I want somebody to enjoy it with.
Yeah.
You have such an amazing life, right? And you're able to go home after we clock out and enjoy it with Trevor, enjoy it with your four beautiful kids, and immerse yourself into their life. You had a dentist appointment at 11 o'clock and still made the show. Like, what an awesome life that you've built. And I can't wait to hopefully replicate that. So anyway, it's in no way is this a doom and gloom segment that TJ just brought us down on. Maybe it's, I see some in the chat that are sending me love and whatnot. I'm good. I'm totally good. I'm just being real and raw. And somehow I never even answered the question in terms of what my dream job is. That's just where I'm at right now.
No, I think you did answer the question. I think we both did. He said, what's your definition of success? And I said that I'm loving this because it's a side gig, and I didn't even think anything would come of this. Like, I'm like, sure, this will be fun. My kids are going back to school. I got a couple hours. Like, we can do this, And so to me, the success is that I have my family is my success. And I put that first, and that because we have to deal with it every single day. That's my success. And what you're now saying is your definition of success is that too. And those are where your goals are right now, because you finally built a business that allows you to support that next goal. You know what I mean? And so we're like, it's so funny that we both went that way when he asked about the definition of success. That's where we went first. But if we're talking about specifically about the vault, like, I don't know. I don't even know, because I didn't even dream that this could happen, Bobby. Like, I left the Ravens and I was good. And you know what I mean? Like, I was good, but I am competitive, and I'm competitive against myself. So if we got 20,000 subscribers in our first 2 years, I want more than that in the next 2 years. You know what I mean? And speaking of, there are 6,000 of you on my Twitter account right now. Y'all need to head over to YouTube and subscribe, please. Please subscribe. If you want to show us any love today, I sure would appreciate that. There's 6,000 of you. If even 10% of you went over there, that would be massive, and subscribe to the show. The Vault. Go to YouTube and subscribe.
Sir, you said something a second ago that made me think about, and of course it just went out of my train of thought as I look at the number, but of people that are on here right now. But within the last 2 years, I went on a date and I tried to explain when she asked what it is that I do.
Yeah.
And a few minutes ago, you said that it came with this clout when you work for an organization in the National Football League. You were the executive editor of BaltimoreRavens.com, a media personality, someone who had a footprint in that building, someone who has a Super Bowl championship winning ring, somebody who has countless relationships throughout one of the most stable, respectable buildings in all of the NFL. For a few years, I was with Ravens Radio. I had access to said building, access to said players and people and coaches and so on and so forth. And I was able to rip it off real quick. I am the pre and post game show broadcaster for Ravens Radio.
Mm-hmm.
That resonates with people, just like it probably did for you as well. I struggle these days to give an elevator pitch of what it is that I and we do without sounding rambly, without sounding uncertain. And so if there,
I just say I host a podcast.
The reason why I don't say that is because I know that there's so much more that goes into it.
Yeah, but they don't know it, and you're struggling. So just say I host a podcast and YouTube page, and then if they have more questions, you explain it.
This is a long way of saying I got wind of that date from a couple years ago. That when she asked me the question that to get back to the original question.
Yeah.
When this person asked me a couple years ago what it was that I wanted to do in 5 years, where I saw myself in 5 years. What I said then, I didn't know, and I now know now, is it actually turned her off because I didn't know how to answer it. Because there's not a clear path, and hopefully I'm describing this the correct way.
Yeah, no.
And we really do need to move on.
We still have some quick hits for sure, yeah, and super chats. But I think you're overthinking it. Kind of like.
Wait, can I finish that though?
Yeah, go ahead.
In traditional media broadcasting, I spent my entire decade in my 20s chasing something that had a clear path. You start in a relatively local market, you then maybe get to regional, and maybe, just maybe, you get your national break. I wanted to do play-by-play broadcasting. I wanted to do studio work. I wanted to do sideline reporting. And I worked at every single one of those thinking that maybe, just maybe, I'd get a shot. Well, the shot came from NBC Sports Washington, then on to Ravens Radio. Everything was clear. I was able to answer that question with confidence.
Sure.
When I wasn't able to answer that question 2 years ago, when I had just started this show and this company with you, I didn't know then, but I now know now because she told me, and we're friends now, that she was like, this guy doesn't have a vision. This guy's not driven. This guy doesn't have what I'm looking for in someone. And I thought to myself, wow, was I giving that perception? Like, was I giving that off?
Yeah.
And so it's a long way of saying, a really, really long way of saying, TJ, the answer to your question for me is ever evolving. But I know, as I said within the last week, that we are nowhere near our ceiling. M&T Bank sits over 70,000. If you look at all the Ravens channels, they have millions of followers. We just hit 21,000 the other day. We're just getting started. This has turned into a therapy session. I'm sorry for rambling. I appreciate you guys for listening.
I would just say this. I understand where you were going. It's hard to define success in this space because it's so new. When you're in traditional media, you see what the ladder is. You see what the height is. What we're doing is so new because YouTube is somewhat new and independent content creators are new and nobody thought you could do it. You thought you had to be in the building to cover the Ravens, that you had to have all that access and da-da-da-da-da. And so it's like, I don't even know where this can go. Like, we started this with a 15-minute audio-only podcast, and here we are with a live stream that was supposed to be an hour or less, and we go on to almost an hour and a half to 2 hours every day. It's like it just keeps evolving for sure. I think we've answered it. I think we've answered it.
I just thank you to TJ for the question, because it inspired a lot of the things that I think about. Get some things off the chest. I appreciate you guys for listening. Hopefully we did a decent job at answering it. And yeah, we do have a few more that we got to get to, and over 8,200 of you currently watching right now. Thank you for being here. Let's get to Chris for you.
Okay, I saw this. I feel bad that Chris felt like she had to do a super chat for it. When I saw it, there wasn't a break, but it's Chris on behalf of Lindsay is saying, Sarah, Lindsay wants to know the link for your jacket. So, man, we are off the rails right now. We haven't even been through quick hits yet, but just so you can see the whole thing, it's a very long one, right? It goes down to, can't even see the whole thing, and I can't back up because my cords, but it goes down to my knees. And I just got it off of Amazon. No big thing. It was can I put a link in the chat?
Sure.
We're not getting sponsorship dollars for this, but here you go.
Sure, you do that because it looks so incredibly soft.
And by the way, just so you know, it took forever for it to be delivered. So something tells me it was delivered from somewhere across the world. But yeah, it's a 3/4 length. It's kind of warm. It looks warmer. It looks warmer than it is, but it gets the job done.
TJ Flock hits us with another one. Craving more trickery from the Ravens offense, like the Lions using laterals. Do you have hope they'll open the vault for the playoffs? Why or why not? We probably should set a time limit on this one, TJ.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, the last TJ question sent us down a rabbit hole. I feel like trickery comes along when you're a little bit more desperate. Do I want new wrinkles? For sure. I see trickery when you feel like you don't have the roster, the players to beat the team across from you. So maybe one trick play, sure, but definitely new wrinkles. And I feel like in December, it all started to come together. The vision that we had for Lamar and Derrick Henry playing off of each other, and then the wrinkles that come from that, I feel like we saw in December, and we're just going to need to see the evolution of that continually throughout the playoffs.
Angie Carr for you.
Considering those controversial interceptions for Lamar can impact voting, thoughts on teams being able to challenge rulings from officials at season's end. Thoughts on see? I'm trying to remember, what can teams challenge and not challenge. Is he saying that teams can't challenge interceptions?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Angie's writing here. Considering those controversial interceptions for Lamar can impact voting, thoughts on teams being able to challenge rulings from officials at season's end. Well, the thing is, though, there was nothing challenged to be challenged with
Right.
those 4 picks.
Right.
They went in as
Like
picks.
they were picks.
But
Yeah.
maybe she's referring to other rulings that impact
Sure.
value and statistics and things of that nature, which
I just feel like in the long run, there's going to be context between everybody's numbers. And as long as you understand that, like, there's some interceptions that were probably dropped, there were probably some that are not your fault and this and that, that it's like at the end of the day, it kind of over a 17 game season, it probably evens out.
for what it's worth, Torrey Smith, former Raven, tweeted out during our show, if the actual players voted for MVP, it would be Lamar Jackson by a landslide.
Oh, there's no doubt. Whenever we see those anonymous polls from like front office versus players, there's so much more respect from the players versus the front offices.
Now, of course, you'd expect a former player and Tom Brady and maybe a couple other former players that have made their way into the media landscape
Although
to be
Dan
included.
Orlovsky.
And Orlovsky, of course, is one of them as well.
A former player, and
he'd be the outlier because he's sticking with Josh, as we learned earlier this week. Don C says, Sarah and Bobby often have to replay the show again if I'm able to be in the live stream. The Vault chat is the show within the show, my YouTube fam. That's it's so true. When we went live 10 months ago on a daily basis, remember that it took until the first week of free agency. It changed everything. You guys changed everything for the better. I really do believe that. Angie, for you, another one. This is number 3 or 4 from Angie.
Yeah, my goodness. If we're being real, the AFC North schedule strength was greater for 2 straight seasons, while Josh is bullying trash teams. The AFC East is not good.
Sea King of the Seas says Ravens Legion. Joe Jenkins.
The pouches worn around players' waists have warming pockets in them. Have a great day, Bobby. Sarah and the rest of Flock Nation go Ravens. So that was about the keeping warm. And they also have those heaters on the sideline.
Same to you, Joe. Appreciate you. Joy Walker, rosacea. So she's referring to my cheek
to your pinkish hue.
Rosacea. And OG for you. Uh-oh.
Oh, you better take that one.
You want me to say it? Oh, I'll say we got a proof. Shout out Jack Arse of the day. Hater Sal in the chat. I never saw Hater Sal. Who's Sal? Did you?
I don't know who Sal is. No, there's only one. There was only one person that bothered me today, but I'm not going to give it the oxygen.
Gotcha. King Lee for you.
Have you guys seen the 2025 schedule yet?
No, that doesn't come out till May. The opponents have been released, though. We'll use that as a quick hit in the coming days. How about that?
Well, the schedule then, but the opponents come out sooner, but we don't know all the opponents until we know who went out last in the playoffs, meaning the Super Bowl winner.
But some
right? Because if you well, that's not true. You can know we can know opponents right now, right?
Yeah, the opponents have been released.
Okay. Maybe that's what he means.
Matter of fact, let's just do this now so that we don't have to remember to include it in a quick hit later on this week. Why the heck not? It's almost 2:00. Home opponents next year, meaning this year, but next fall, outside of the divisional opponents, New England, Jets, Chicago, Detroit, Houston, and the Rams. On the way side, outside of the division, Buffalo, Miami, Green Bay, Minnesota, and Kansas City.
There you go.
Those are your 2025 opponents. In terms of the schedule, as we mentioned, that'll be in May, and you already know we'll be live that night.
For sure.
Not a fan says, go hit the goddamn mother fluffing like button. Thanks, not a fan. Appreciate you. Recruit them. Over 8,300 of you concurrently watching us.
Mother fluffing. I like that one. I like that one a lot.
Nikita, for you.
Y'all forever, at least once a week for life.
Heck yeah.
Let's bump that up to 5 times a week if you can.
Tony says 8,000. Please subscribe.
Seriously,
everybody's recruiting for us, which is super cool. And Deshaun as well.
Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already.
Absolutely. That way it pops up. Not poop, it pops up right on your notifications, especially if you hit that bell. Joe Jenkins writes, you're not alone, Bobby. You have over 21,000 friends and viewers. You also have Sarah and an awesome family. I know how you feel. I'm in Indiana, me and my cat. Appreciate you, Joe. Yeah, it's like I said, everything's fine. I'm just telling you what life is like as a independent, self-employed, at-home, single 30-year-old. And a lot of people would kill for it. And I got a lot of gratitude. Appreciate you, Joe. Yeah. Vinicius, maybe?
Maybe. Brazilian fan here. Love your content. Go Vault.
Heck yeah. I love Brazil. Sherry says, Sarah, if you have a Super Bowl ring, can we see it sometime? I didn't know that was a thing.
Do have a Super Bowl ring, and yes, I will show it to you.
Love it. Eileen says, Bobby, you're developing the new frontier. Aw, that's nice. And Joe Jenkins.
Flock Nation is going to help make both channels so successful, neither of you are going to leave us. He's speaking it into existence.
A lot of nice super chats today, including TJ that kind of inspired this whole thing, and Joe showing some love, and Eileen and all of you guys. So just wanted to say thank you to all of you for the love. And I think it's about time we get to quick hits and then jump. What say you?
That was quite the detour. That was a lot of super chats. Let's go.
Got to tell you, it felt really good to do all of what we just did. I don't know about you, but I know.
I can tell that. No, I liked it because I can tell that it was good for you. Like it was, yeah.
The oversharing is something that I guess has just become organic at this point. But here's what you have to look forward to. And first and foremost, happy birthday to now 28-year-old, two-time MVP, maybe soon to be three-time MVP, Lamar Jackson, who just put the finishing touches on his 7th NFL season. What a career it's been. What a treat it is to cover this guy on a daily basis, Sarah. And I think a lot of people in Baltimore feel just incredibly lucky that he's at the epicenter of their favorite team and has been and isn't going anywhere. So happy birthday to Lamar. He turned 28 today. As far as yeah, go ahead.
No, you go for it. I haven't looked through this yet. Go ahead.
I haven't either, but here's what you have coming up throughout the week. The Ravens, as you all know, for the postseason, the Ravens just kind of roll out the red carpet of events and whatnot. On Wednesday, that's tomorrow, they're going to be doing car stenciling. That's at Lot D, M&T Bank Stadium, from 6 to 10 in the morning, presented by Safeway. So if you want to get your car all decked out, maybe that's something that you do. You can create your own billboard as well all week long at BaltimoreRavens.com. You can also send letters to the Ravens, I guess, as well. On Thursday, there's going to be some Ravens rallies held at Mother's, High Tops in Cockeysville, and Pappas. That's presented by Miller Lite and Jimmy Smith. Apparently Jimmy's extending his trip. Jimmy, Brian Hall, Pernell McPhee, and Jermaine Lewis will be a part of those. There's going to be a Purple Friday fuel up at Reckless Shepherd Brewing Company from 5:30 to 10 a.m. and some legend appearances from a guy who was just in our live chat earlier on in the show, Femi Ayambadejo, and, of course, friend of the show, Ray Rice. Purple Friday Caravan in Howard County at some partnering locations, and the official playoff pop-up flock shop is outside M&T Bank Stadium, Gate A, January 9th and 10th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So Purple Friday, again, that is January 10th for all those fuel-up events, and that should do it there. Do you have anything else to add?
Nope.
You brought this in about Zay's Instagram story and a new glow up for him.
He may have been inspired by Derrick Henry. He posted a story yesterday with his locks in his hand. So that looks about the right length, right? That was a picture of him in this summer. So it seemed to be doing well for Derrick Henry, although Derrick Henry is just a beast with or without long locks. But I can't wait to see the next look of Zay Flowers there.
For sure. This guy and this gal, Lamar and his mother, Felicia Jones, since she cussed him out, as he told us coming off the Philadelphia game, of course, prior to the bye week. Yes, they have been unbeaten since 4-0. And maybe, just maybe, the woman who's been by his side since draft night and a long time prior to that knows what's best for her boy.
4-0. Let's keep it up. Let's keep it up. Thank you, Miss Felicia. And I forgot to bring this in. The 33rd team had this great graphic. Nate Wiggins as a rookie, and he got a lot of snaps, okay? He was a starter by the end, but he got a lot of snaps. His entire rookie season, he never allowed a touchdown on 63 targets. But he does have a touchdown. He scored more touchdowns as a quarterback than he gave up, which was 0.
Yeah.
Future big contract for this guy right here. Woo! What a great draft pick. At the end of the first round, yet again, EDC.
And if those aren't enough for you, the third lowest passer rating allowed, 51.8. Lowest catch rate allowed across the NFL, 43.6%. So number 2, certainly here to stay. And as I've been saying all year long, it just kind of fits the bill for him. The dude belongs. That's exactly what he does. He belongs. And you brought this in about Zeke.
Well, yeah, in case the Ravens have to eventually meet up with the Chargers again, it wouldn't shock me if the Chargers advance, obviously, over the Houston Texans, but the Chargers signed former Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott. So obviously they don't have J.K. Dobbins right now. They've been charging up the bus with Gus Bus, and now they will bring in Zeke.
You mean to tell me that a dude who has no past Ravens ties is being brought in by the Chargers?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean to tell me?
That is exactly what I'm telling you. Shocking.
No Way DJ and Sharu Hashmi are our patrons who've been with us since the jump. They give us support through Patreon. And for as little as $1.99, you can as well. It's a great way to join yet another community. It goes directly towards our daily efforts to build what we're building. We want to say thank you to No Way DJ. We want to say thank you to Sharu Hashmi. We appreciate you both. And if you guys are interested in doing the same, visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast to learn more about what we're offering here inside the channel this month.
I got one more quick hit.
You do.
Okay? Video?
You do. Absolutely.
Okay, listen, I gave my review of Lamar's cologne, and I feel bad that it wasn't a big hit in my family. So Gianna Hahn of Baltimore Banner.
Friend of the show. She came on when you couldn't make it one day.
Oh, I did not know that. Wonderful.
I think it was on your vacation time. She was great.
Okay, I bet she was. She's stellar, a stellar follow on Twitter. Anyway, she also got the cologne, as I did, but she took it around the locker room. She's got that locker room access. So I just wanted to show you a few other perspectives of what the players thought about the cologne. And Bobby, this kind of reminds me, I know we have the homage giveaway on Wednesday, right?
We do tomorrow.
Which is tomorrow. Yep. What if we did the Lamar Jackson cologne giveaway on Thursday?
Yeah, that's something.
We have a guest on Friday, and we won't have time to hit all those super chats.
You mentioned that at the end of last week that you wanted to get around to it, so I'll let you pick it.
All right, so let's do Thursday. I'm going to do a Lamar Jackson cologne giveaway. And as just a preview to that, here's what the players in the locker room thought about the cologne, courtesy of Baltimore Banner and Gianna Hahn.
Jackson cologne, what do you think it's going to smell like?
I don't know. He down there, so I don't want to say nothing crazy. Oh, now he smelled. That's fine.
Hey, Al!
Is Isaiah likely for the audio?
When GQ dropped Lamar Jackson's Essential Things, it was filled with many interesting things, my favorite being water. However, the one that caught the internet's interest was his unisex cologne.
For the women, sexy probably. For the guys, how we be, like a man. So
of course, we had to try it out. Lamar has a unisex cologne. What do you think it's going to smell like?
I think it smells like palm trees.
Some chill, not too strong. I would say it smells like the sea, ocean, fresh ocean smell.
Flowers?
Hibiscus, daisies.
A little more on like the feminine side, kind of like more like feminine cologne.
Audio only. Okay. Everybody's testing it out now.
I don't know if I'd wear it,
but it's not bad.
It smells good. I don't know what it smells like. Yeah, just like real good.
Oh, that smells good. It's unisex. I guess you can say that. It's good.
Not what I was expecting, but it's smooth. It's different.
I have no idea what it smells like, but it smells quite nice, and it's not cologne. It's a little bit of both.
It's for real. It's for real for me. It does smell unisex. This is weird. This is like definitely a blend of both. It's kind of like aftershave cologne. It has a hint of like kind of like a lavender-y flower, so it's not bad. The logo's kind of cool too. It's not bad. I see it more. It's pretty good.
It smells like the ocean.
Would you
smells
wear
like
it?
A beach.
Where would you wear it?
If I was in the Bahamas or Puerto Rico.
That's good. It's like when you walk through the mall with your mom and you get all the samples.
I don't know what it smells like. Cause it smells like flowers, but it also smells like something manly too. Right here.
All right. So look, a lot of people liked it there. They keep saying it's a little bit of both. The ingredients, the manly part that you smell is like the incense. That's what really hits you. And then the more feminine part that you smell is like the cinnamon. And I think it was tangerine, but it's more fruit than it is like flowery. And that's what they were trying to get to. I don't know where Nelson and Aguilar is talking about the ocean. I don't know about that. But anyway, giveaway Thursday. There's only been a couple sprays taken from this. So we will give this out on Thursday, the Lamar Jackson Nightlight Colognes. And then we'll have to get a review from whoever wins it.
Perfect.
Boom. All right.
Perfect. Good stuff. Thanks to all Banner Sports. You can go find that video. And we got a couple more super chats before we get out of here as well. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Joe, Flock Nation is going to help make both channels. Yeah. Did we already throw this up there?
Oh, yes. That was where he
Joe?
was manifesting that we weren't going to leave. Yeah.
Appreciate you, Joe. Chef Trez says, let me bring the hate back.
Yeah.
Steelers with a bunch of throw-up emojis are going one and done. Don't jinx the Ravens win, Bobby.
Hey,
Well, what if
you
Sarah
got the
picked
exact you predicted 35-10 last week.
Yeah, come on, Chef.
Okay, but I
Liza,
will just
you.
say we will be able to preview Steelers much more over the next couple of days. Lamar and Derrick Henry and everybody speaks today, but I believe Steelers are going to talk too. So
Okay.
we'll talk much more about playoffs. Today was a little bit light on playoffs, other than Zay Flowers and his availability. But we'll get there for sure. We just got to get the people to talk about it, and that's what they will do today.
Cool. And Liza, for you in closing.
Dan Orlovsky was. I hate it when we take jabs at people. Dan Orlovsky. I like to tear about arguments, but I don't like to punk on people. She's saying he wasn't the greatest quarterback, unlike the GOAT Tom Brady, who has nothing but respect for Lamar. That is very true.
Yeah, but
we're gonna find out who Tom Brady votes for.
But remember, too, Liza has Orlovsky has a ton of respect for Lamar, too.
Yeah, he voted for him
It's just
last
he's
year.
voting for Josh.
He voted for him
So-
last year. And did Dan have a vote in 2018?
I don't know.
Wouldn't shock me if he did, that he would have voted for Lamar twice by now.
In 19, yeah.
Yeah.
Milo G25 says, the Ravens came to play against the Steelers Saturday. Come on, Ravens, get the Super Bowl monkey off your back. Bring the trophy back to Baltimore. Are those crossing finger emojis?
Yeah, I think
Gotcha.
so. Yeah.
Appreciate you, Milo. And thanks to all of you. Wow. 2 hours. Certainly was not in the cards. I think TJ deserves a little bit of love for getting us there.
Yep.
At one point there were over 8,600 concurrents. At the time,
85.98. It's 85. That's 86 over right now.
Right now, there's over 6,600 on Sarah's Twitter. There's over 600 on mine. There's over 1,300 on our Vault YouTube channel. It goes without saying, as Sarah mentioned earlier on, for those of you who are in the X or Twitter space, we would love to make you a daily Vaulter, whatever we end up naming the nickname, over on the YouTube space. It's a lot more of an engaging experience. You can drop a super chat. It's just
a regular chat.
Well, yeah, you can do that on Twitter too. But the only way you can do super chats is through YouTube. And there's other features as well that make it, especially for algorithm searches and when we come up for you and whatnot. YouTube is obviously a great place, and X is too. We're not asking you to change habits, but we would love for you to come support us over in the YouTube space if you would. So with that, I think we're just about set. 3:30 press conferences, as you mentioned. Lamar and others will speak, and that means we're another day closer towards playoff football and Super Wild Card Weekend. It's an 8:00 kickoff in Baltimore at M&T Bank Stadium. Ravens and Steelers with a trip to the divisional round on the line. So for Sarah Ellison, our tremendous sponsor, Man to Sleep, all 8,600 plus of you who spent part of your Tuesday with us. Maybe you spent a chunk of your Tuesday with us. I don't know. We just hit the 2 hour mark. I can't remember if we've ever done that for a lunch hour live stream. So we got to go. We appreciate you. Go check out the archive section, the best of Vault clips. There will be, hint, hint, 2 coming from today. You don't even know that yet, but I got a couple ideas. So that's what we have to come. We appreciate you so much. Like the video on the way out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell. I'm Bobby Trossett with that. Signing off from this Tuesday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream, and we'll catch up with you on Wednesday. Same time, same location. You know where to find us. And as always, thanks for joining us here inside the Vault. We'll talk soon.